So, what is up, everyone? This was just kind of a very last minute decision for me to hop on live as this trade deadline is going on. But I decided to do it just because, I anticipated the Raptors to make moves today, and we have our first one of the day. So, I'm super excited to discuss it. I'm super excited to, you know, share my thoughts on it. And yeah, basically, I'm not going to waste any more time. We have our first move of the day, and Norman Powell is headed to the Portland Trailblazers. Wow. Um, I definitely did not see that one coming at all. I mean, I had a few spots that I thought Norman Powell was going to show up potentially in trade deadline. And particularly, I was really looking at the New York Knicks, and I was really looking at the Indiana Pacers as potential teams to go after Norman Powell. And I thought those teams had the best chances to get him, especially because by the sound of it, the Indiana Pacers were ready to overpay, which was really exciting if you were the Toronto Raptors. And especially if you're a fan like me, I'm a huge fan of Miles Turner. So I was really hoping to see him potentially sent back in any kind of Norman Powell package. But alas, nothing. Norman Powell is he's going to the Blazers, and the package is. I hate to say it, but my initial reaction is the package is pretty overwhelming. Sorry, not overwhelming, underwhelming. And don't get me wrong, that's no knock. And the package is going to be, in case you folks haven't seen it, it's going to be Rodney Hood and Gary Trent coming back to the Toronto Raptors for Norman Powell. Uh, as far as now goes, there hasn't been any reports of any kind of draft pick compensation. So it's just going to be Rodney Hood and Gary Trent for Norman Powell. And God, I mean, don't get me wrong. I like Gary Trent's game. I thought he's stepped it up nicely this year, especially with CJ going down. I thought Gary Trent filled in well there. Obviously, he's still really young. I believe he's 21 off the top of my head. So he's got a lot of development he could potentially still have in this league. No. To reply, by the way, Liam, sorry, I just saw your comment. He shouldn't be a free agent this year. I believe the Raptors should still have his contract details. But actually, I can totally pull that up for you right now and let you know. But as far as I know, they should still have him on his rookie deal as of now. Let's see. Gary Trent Jr. Contract. Sorry, bear with me for a second, folks. Yeah, so they still have him uh, for this season. Then they can pick up a team option again for next season. Then after that, the Raptors will have control over him as a restricted free agent. So it's not the worst situation to be in. I mean, he's a good enough young player that I think you can be excited about him, but I don't know. Here's the thing. I was just talking about this for those of you that keep up with my channel. I was just talking about this with Clutch Takes a few days ago. I did a collaborative like podcast with him. And if you're committing to the core of Fred Van Vliet, OG Anunoby, and Pascal Siakam, I think you're really looking for a game-changing talent either at the center position for the Raptors or at the shooting guard position. And I like Gary Trent. I do. I've talked about it. I think he's a good defender. I think he's a sniper. Like I think his shooting will be a really nice addition to this team. But do I think he has the ceiling of a superstar? With all due respect, absolutely not. Absolutely not. I think he can develop into a very good player for this Raptors team, but I don't think he's a s I don't think he has that good of a ceiling by any means. On top of which, again, this is something I talked about with Clutch, but if you're getting, just a good or a very good player, whatever, at that shooting guard spot for the Raptors, you're really committing to the idea that that center position is going to be where you have a superstar. Because let's be real, this core, as good as it is, and it should be good moving forward, needs a superstar to really take it over the top. I like somebody like Evan Mobley out of the draft this year. I'd really be hoping that that's somebody that the Raptors take a good long look at. But at the same time, it's 2021. Can you really build a championship team around a center anymore? I feel like it hasn't been since the 2000s that you could argue that a big man was the best player on a championship team, unless you really want to make the case for Tim Duncan in the latter stage of his career with the Spurs in that 13-14, I believe it was, Spurs championship. Unless you want to argue he was the best player on that team, which I guess you can make that case. Regardless, if you want to make the case that he was the best player on a championship team there, sure, I guess. But other than that, it's really just been dominated by wings and Steph Curry in recent years. So I wouldn't really love the idea for the Raptors, to invest in a superstar center as much as I do like Evan Mobley. But yeah, going back to Norman Powell here specifically, it's a shame to see him go. It really is. Norman Powell was having a career year, obviously, with the Raptors. I think all of Raptors faithful really like Norman Powell. I personally really like Norman Powell. I thought he did a great job kind of bouncing off the added playmaking once he went into the starting lineup. And it's tough. It's tough. I still think the package is really underwhelming, but I could be wrong. Let's see here. Do I think Lowry goes to Philly, Miami, or the Lakers? So I know this is off track, but I will actually get into it. Why not? I was actually also just talking about this. Philly just finalized the trade for George Hill, which makes it seem to me like they might be out on Kyle Lowry. I mean, don't get me wrong, that trade can still absolutely happen, and Philadelphia needed more playmaking regardless on that team. But at the moment, I do think Miami does seem like the team at the forefront of this whole situation. I mean, when it comes to the Heat, they've been reluctant to give Tyler Hero in the package that could potentially send Kyle Lowry over uh, to Miami. And I think that's kind of where Masai is hesitating at the moment because there's been reports, obviously, that Masai really wants to go after a Tyler Hero in this trade package where he would have more control over Hero's contract. And with regards to Duncan Robinson, he's going to be a restricted free agent in this offseason. As much as you can re-sign him, if somebody throws 20 million, whatever, upwards of that at Duncan Robinson, do you really want to match that contract? I don't think so personally. Like in that case, why wouldn't you just pay Norman Powell 20 million if you're planning on paying Duncan Robinson 20 million? Because with all due respect to Duncan Robinson, Norman Powell's a better all-around player by every stretch of the imagination. The only category you could really argue that Robinson is better at is shooting, and even still, Norman is actually having a better shooting year this year. But again, in that case, you can argue that Robinson just gets more defensive attention when it comes to the three-point shot, and that's totally fair, and I would agree, but it's tough. I think at the moment, I would still say Miami is the leader in the Kyle Lowry sweepstakes, and I fully expect Kyle Lowry to get dealt today. I mean, if Norman Powell got dealt, I think Kyle Lowry's getting dealt today as well. Oof. I don't think the Lakers have a real shot in this situation to kind of talk about the Kyle Lowry stuff. I look at any package the Lakers could throw together, and what's the most exciting assets that they could really send back to Toronto in terms of young talent? What? Kuzma and Talon Horn Tucker? I mean, don't get me wrong, neither of them are bad players by any means. Talon Horn Tucker has kind of been used sparingly here and there. He's kind of like an end of the bench guy, but you can definitely see the potential there. With Kyle Kuzma, I really don't see him being better than a fine quality starter or a role player, to be honest with you. I think the best thing you can say about Kyle Kuzma is he has a high motor and he really works his ass off when he's on the court. He's a good defender, above average defender. He's decent on the glass, but and he's a decent scorer. But besides for that, like Kuzma really isn't as exciting of a prospect as he might have been a couple of years ago. I think more or less the player that you see now with Kuzma, I don't really see him getting that much better than what he is. So I've been rambling for a lot, but to like bring it back, Yeah, I still do think Miami is at the forefront of any Kyle Lowry sweepstakes, and my phone is just going crazy with Woj bombs right now. So just give me 2 seconds to check into some of the most recent ones, just to make sure there's nothing about Kyle, and there's not. All right. So going back to the whole Norman Powell thing. Oh, God, I really wish we got a better trade partner and a better offer. A dream scenario for me when it came to Norman Powell was the Indiana Pacers. It really was, or the New York Knicks, but probably more likely the Indiana Pacers. I wanted to see Miles Turner come back. I remember I made a video earlier on in the year talking about potential packages, at the start of the year to help the Raptors be better at the time. This is when they were struggling out of the gate, and this is before kind of Norm had his breakout. And Miles Turner was somebody that I really liked for the Raptors at the time. I still would like Miles Turner in a Raptors jersey, don't get me wrong. Um, I think he's just such a natural fit for the Raptors in terms of his defense is phenomenal. I think Miles Turner has been one of the best defensive players in the league this year. I think if guys like Ben Simmons and Rudy Gobert didn't exist, then Miles Turner would be probably at the forefront of the defensive player of the year conversation. So I thought he would have been a fantastic fit for the Raptors as a rim protector. And on top of which, obviously, he's a great pick and pop option and he can finish down low. I just thought he would slot in so perfectly to this Raptors team that when I saw reports that the Pacers were interested and, were willing to quote unquote overpay, it was almost a reverse of the trade package that I kind of thought of at the time, where it would be Norman Powell and picks going for Turner. I thought in this case, it could have been the other way around, where it could have been Miles Turner heading back with maybe some draft pick compensation for Norman Powell. But that's not the case here, unfortunately. I thought the Knicks, being in the position that they are, were maybe a team that was potentially going to overpay as well and send pretty decent draft capital to the Raptors. And that's what the one thing that really surprises me maybe about this trade is that there's no draft capital whatsoever in it here for the Raptors. As of now, at least, there's been no confirmed draft capital, and just Gary Trent and Rodney Hood. I'm sorry, I just can't get over the feeling that this is an underwhelming package. And again, it's not reflective of Gary Trent. I think he's a fine young player. I think he'll be a good player for the Raptors going forward, but I think Toronto could have done better. But I'm gonna maybe hold back my overall kind of judgment on this deal until I see what Masai does potentially with the Kyle Lowry trade. I'd be hoping that you net a good return from the Miami Heat, which is who I think is going to be the trade partner. Obviously, I've talked about it at this point, but yeah, I think that it's going to wrap it up for me here at the moment. I just wanted to hop on, just give some quick reactions to what I thought the Raptors did in this Norman Powell trade. At the moment, if I had to put a grade on it, shit, I'd probably give it like a B minus. It's a good young player to be getting back, and if you really were committed to the idea that Norman Powell was not in your future plans, then it's not a bad return by any means. But I don't know. I'm not a fan of this. I thought the Raptors could have done better. But then again, the Raptors also could have done worse. So if I were to put a final grade on it, I'd say the Raptors get a B minus for this trade. I think this is a great trade for Portland. I think Norman Powell is going to be somebody that would really help, you know, the Blazers and potentially competing in the playoffs. I don't think it really elevates them to the status of some of the best teams in the West by any means, but I think it gives them yet another weapon. And I think Norman Powell is somebody that is going to really benefit from playing beside a Dame Lillard. So yeah, super excited to see that for the Blazers. Hopefully Norman Powell does well in the situation there. Obviously, everybody in Toronto has nothing but love for him here. But yeah, for the Raptors, meh, meh. Anyways, I'm gonna wrap up this live stream. if you're here now, I will be back once Kyle Lowry potentially gets dealt later today. So hop back on with me then.